Hello and welcome to another edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Will Massasak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, or Bradshaw to Ben if you come to SteelerFury.com. And I am pleased to be joined after another great Steelers victory to talk about it and the coming week's matchup with three excellent cohorts. No, I'm not making this sign in Italy, which means bad things. Three of the best cohorts money can't buy. First of all, from somewhere in Pittsburgh, Suburban Zone 22, his name is Steel Perch. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I'm good, but for the record, money can buy me. It just hasn't yet. And as long as you don't have a mute on my microphone, I'll be doing just fine tonight.
Yes. I need to have a mute on your microphone. That would help sometimes. Also joining us from somewhere in the South, running away from tonight's debate. His name is FC, also known as Dom. How are you, sir?
I'm too opinionated about football to give a rat's ass about politics, so I'm doing well.
Yeah, exactly. You have strong opinions about football. By the way, I should say, I get ahead of myself. I should say his name is Dom. He goes by FC. He's with us. How are you, sir? I've said that every time for 8 years, so I have to get it in because I said it wrong. And if I don't say it, then I have to go back and re-record it and edit it back in. Just for FYI. Also joining us, don't mind my internal monologue, from somewhere in Indiana, the tech-challenged Smith is Smoking, also known as Jeremy Coleman. Jeremy, how are you, sir?
Doing good, guys. How are you?
Pretty good. Well, we got the full round table. However, I'm going to give the floor to the one that might be negative about a 5-0 Steelers team because he told me he was going to be. His name is the guy down the bottom there. That's Dom, FC. What do you got to say for yourself?
I'm not necessarily going to be negative. I just thought that I thought the defense and special teams played great. I just think the offense was a little bit it was flustered in the first quarter. They had success. I have mostly complaints about the offensive script, the first 15 or 20 plays, and a little bit of lazy footwork from our Hall of Fame quarterback. But other than that, not many complaints.
Well,
I thought Ben could have played.
When you say lazy footwork, give me a specific.
He went with we had 3 runs called, and there's absolutely no doubts in my mind that he went hot to Juju twice, and to James Washington once. The one to James Washington can be complete. The one to Juju Smith, the first one, absolutely. He didn't even move his feet. And he got the ball deflected. Did not move his feet. Took the snap, basically took a step back, and threw the quick slant. Where I understand the ball got to be in and out of your hand, but you also got to find a passing lane. It's your first responsibility as a quarterback to find the passing lane, and he did. And the ball was deflected, and that's how turnovers happen, and that's how interception returns for 7 happen, and you're down by 7. We're getting to the point where mistakes matter. Against the Ravens, the offense has to be a little bit more coordinated. I have nothing. We were saying last week how we love the reverses, we love all that. So do I. But let's get a rhythm, let's get a flow before we go with interesting footwork and ball work where you have, the jet sweep, blah, blah, blah. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't. But let's get the offense into a rhythm before we get cute with the jazz hands offense. This is the way I believe I refer to it.
The jazz hands. Perch, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
Hey, there's no time limits here, for one. There's no mute button for 2, and I'll take as long as I want. And I don't know what FC is so grumpy.
I'll take what I want. You're an old man, Perch, ahead of your time. Sorry, go ahead.
Grumpy old man. Just because the Steelers haven't scored an opening drive touchdown in 38 straight games or whatever the hell the number is, doesn't mean we should have a problem with the opening script, FC. Come on, man. They're just easing into the game, right? They're just warming up a little bit. They're feeling things out. I think self-scouting's got to come into that a little bit too. When you almost have 3 interceptions on the first couple drives because everybody knows you're going to do a play action pass followed by a short slant, and they're just jumping the routes. That's a problem. I've given a lot of credit to the offensive coordinator and Matt Canada, especially this year, for just some of the wrinkles and things they have put in, starting the game with jet sweeps and just a lot of different motion in the run games and the handoffs they're doing to Chase Claypool and things that just weren't there. It's more than just power eye football, run between the tackles. It's getting defenses on their heels a little bit, and you can see, we're rushing for 4 or 5 yards of carry pretty consistently every game now. It wasn't perfect early in the game, but we won 38-7. It was an absolute mauling at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. It was one of those games that just brings a tear to your eye if you like physical ass kicking. Like, this is like FC's kind of game, right? Like, just you're getting in there and you're just lining up across the man and beating his ass into the ground. That was Steelers versus Browns football. You love it. That's just what it should look like.
So, Dom, did you shed a tear, in fact, just quickly?
I did, but it was not for the reason that you think. I cut up some jalapenos for a jalapeno dip, forgot to wash my hands, had one too many beers, and went and took a pee, and then I shedded a tear. Yeah,
bad idea. Been there, done that, bad idea. Jeremy, just one last note on the negative Nancy's. I thought that actually that James Washington in particular created one of those near picks because he looked like he was, speaking of lazy footwork, that he wasn't even really running his route. It looked like he was kind of going through the motions, didn't expect the throw. So I guess maybe if you're going to do that RPO, it'd be nice if the receiver was on the same wavelength and knew that the ball was going to come. That might be an issue. He also had a drop later in that drive. Some of the slow starting thing, is it just guys not 100% on it and ready to play, do you think? Or is it the script? Or is it that they are just like feeling out? They're basically doing stuff designed to make the defense declare how they're going to play them. Some combination of those. What do you think?
Honestly, I just think it's more of a slow start more than anything. Honestly, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of Ben doing these RPOs. He just doesn't look comfortable doing the RPOs. That's more of a young man's game, kind of learn that out of college and coming in. It's just more of a natural feel for some of those younger quarterbacks where it's like, it seems like Ben has trouble kind of committing to one or the other. It seems like his throws are always just like a second late there. But, I'd put a lot of that on James Washington, too. He's got to be more focused. He's got to know that ball's coming his way. Like you said, he dropped the ball later in the drive. It's just like you're a third-year player now. It's time to start playing and acting like one.
Yeah, well, okay. Let's talk about some of the good things now. The defense did not have such a slow start, Perch. It seemed like they, came out a house of fire. This, just rivalry because it's the Browns and they're just trying to, make sure the Browns understand that they're not going to be at the Steelers level. To what do you attribute the defensive play in this game?
Several things. Our defensive line's a bunch of hosses. They could, line up and kick anybody's ass right across from you. When you have a team like the Browns, though, that really they're pretty much a one-dimensional team. If you can key on and shut that run down, which we were able to. You got a midget quarterback who can't see over the line of scrimmage, who shits his pants under pass rush, that has to roll out. And the Steelers had a perfect scouting report on him. I don't think Baker Mayfield's ever going to do anything productive against the Steelers, to be honest, because if he can't feast on you with that run game and build off of play action passing and get him rolled out of the pocket, he's a sitting duck. And if you have some good edge rushers or interior rushers who are going to get pressure in his face, he's done. And that's what you saw.
Yeah, FC, more specifically, I felt like, I've been very suspect. I've been hard on him. I was particularly hard on him the first week. Willis, the rookie tackle for Cleveland, I thought looked overmatched in this game. And I'm wondering if that's a big part of it. You're counting on this guy to be your anchor at left tackle coming in as a rookie and then playing against this defense. It didn't work out so well.
Sure. I was never a fan, even at Alabama. Never bought in. But here's the thing. I think we're at the point where we got to credit Bud Dupree, TJ Watt, stuff into it. Cameron Hayward, Tyson Alolu. Chris Wormley's play has improved over the last 3 games. Even Isaiah Buggs, who was very limited, I don't even think he maybe even played last week. But the Steelers' front seven's pretty damn good. And, the back seven is pretty good. And together as a unit, they're probably top 3 defense. I don't think anybody can even consider arguing against that, and they could easily be the best defense in the NFL. I think that as Steelers fans, we're waiting for the shoe to drop on defense because it seems to have done that over the last 10 years, despite last year the other shoe dropping was Ben being injured. But we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. We figure it's going to be defense. Is it going to be the Devin Bush injury? Is it going to be, what's it going to be? And I don't necessarily think the other shoe is going to drop. I think that this is a pretty special team that's filled with very good players.
Yeah, that's hard to argue. But Jeremy, the Devin Bush injury, I personally have mixed feelings about it. I mean, of course, it's never great to lose a talented guy that's a starter for you and is a guy wearing the green dot and communicating and all that stuff. Still an ascendant player, though. He's not to the level where he's going to be someday. I'm wondering, how on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being, a disaster, what do you think this loss will mean for the Steelers, not just this week, but kind of going forward?
Well, it's definitely a big deal going forward. This week, Robert Spillane is not going to get tested as far as what is his range going to be. It sounds like Jonnu Smith is going to be limited, so he's kind of the middle of the field guy there, who would have kind of really put him to the test, so to say. The backup tight end, Anthony Ferkser, he's more of a big-bodied guy who's not going to run away from you. And then it also bears to mention that the Titans are a physical run team, so Robert Spillane, will be more in his element this week because he's not going to be asked to cover not near as much this week. I think going forward, though, it's a big deal. The last time we lost a linebacker with that type of speed, Ryan Shazier in that playoff game, it was a noticeable difference in team speed, kind of for the rest of the year there. They just could not get to gaps. They could not cover the way they could with Ryan Shazier. And to extent, Devin Bush was not at the level Ryan Shazier was at the time when he went down. But Bush is a similar type of player where at least his speed is an element in coverage, as to where now you don't really see that as much. I think you're going to see Cam Sutton come down and play obvious passing downs, kind of as that nickel linebacker. It's a role he's done before. But I think it's a big deal for long term, because we all plan on, hoisting number 7 this year. Losing a player of Devin Bush's caliber is never a good thing. So
yeah, it's not going to help. I appreciate your point. A couple of things to add to that. One is Ferkser is a small-bodied guy who has the athleticism of a big-bodied guy.
Well,
that's more like the accurate description. The thing is about that speed and coverage and Spillane being revealed, 2 things I'll say about that. One is, he obviously has good anticipation and the ability to read the play because, you saw him on Sunday show up, very unexpectedly kind of on that tight end screen. Like, to me, that's a play that, you have to understand that that's happening before it's obvious that it's happening in order to get there and deliver that kind of a hit. So that part was good. But Devin Bush, Perch, this year hasn't really been covering tight ends and doing stuff that would really be challenged for his athleticism. He's basically moved into the role that Mark Barron was playing last year, which was, covering running backs coming out of the backfield and green dogging a blitz if the running back doesn't come out. Am I missing something about – what Devin Bush was able to do that Mark Barron couldn't do was provide a lot of tackles sideline to sideline in the run game. But, I'm wondering if Spillane might actually be able to fill what Bush was doing this year. Not what he's capable of, but what he was doing this year.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question moving forward is what do they do? I think they've got a bunch of options, though. Ulysses Gilbert is a pretty athletic guy, and I think he can come in and some package stuff. Marcus Allen hits like a ton of bricks, and he's almost kind of a Mark Barron, where he's actually physical and likes to tackle. where he's a little bit limited in coverage, but he's kind of a tweener between a linebacker and a safety. So they've got some options there. Spillane as well, or they just bring the extra nickel in with. I think Mike Hilton's probably going to miss this game, so Cam Sutton's going to be otherwise occupied. But just for this week, as long as Jonnu Smith doesn't burn us up, get that one. They really don't have a lot of backs that are going to come out of the backfield that our linebackers can't really run with. Derrick Henry is as physical as he is. It's not like he's a great route runner or some little speedster that we're going to have trouble covering.
So FC, I'll give you a chance. A lot transpired since the last time you had the microphone. Do you want to catch up on any of that? But just in general, on this question of, filling in for Devin Bush, I kind of get the impression that Ulysses Gilbert is going to end up being the LJ Fort of this crew, in that he's never going to quite get the hat, and eventually he's going to go somewhere else and play like we think he's capable of playing. Do you think they'll work him in? What do you think about this question?
I absolutely do. It's very interesting. First thing that we've got to quickly do is credit Kevin Colbert, because I bust his balls a lot, but the Steelers have overcome a lot already this year. I mean, more than people want to give credit for. I mean, losing an all-pro guard for 2 separate games, having a rookie step in. But I expect that Spillane's going to get the start. And am I surprised? No, because I was a fan of his. He played at played in the MAC, and he's been put in space. He played well, linebacker there, and people have been trying to he doesn't time very fast, but he's very similar to a player that played a little bit before Jeremy signed for the Pittsburgh Steelers, also played at the University of Pittsburgh, a guy by the name of Jerry Osowski, who is not tall enough, not big enough, but somehow finishes the year with 125 tackles and is never out of position once. And every time they try to take advantage of him, he managed to break it off in their ass. And that's the type of player I think Spillane is. I think that the Titans screwed up by trying to sneak him, or by giving up on him. Speaking of LJ Fort, he's a football savant in a way. The tight end screen, he was in the back pocket. From the minute he came in, he was completely on his assignment. He knew what to do. He was instructing other players around him. He's confident, he's smart, and he understands the game. UG3, I think he's every bit as athletic as Devin Bush. The numbers say he's every bit as athletic as Devin Bush. He's just a little bit stronger, naturally a stronger man. He doesn't have the pedigree. He wasn't a first-round pick. He was a sixth-round pick. And I don't know if he'll do a lot this week. I think that the Steelers may have a little UG3 for the Baltimore Ravens built in the next week. This is more of a Spillane type of game, and I think that's the way the Steelers are going to approach this, with the inside linebacker position, where they're going to play several players. I agree Marcus Allen's going to step up and probably play the nickel backer because of the injury to Mike Hilton, which is also going to probably force Justin Lane, up and maybe play some dime back. The Steelers, the one thing we have is depth, and you got to credit Mike Tomlin, you got to credit Kevin Colbert for that. We may not always like the picks, but somehow, some way, they seem to always come up aces.
Yeah, true. It's been that you didn't even mention the tackle situation where their starting tackle went down in the first game, and they
player from the back steps up and is stud.
Not only did the guy step in, he's been great. The two new starters have been pretty lights out. Just FC quick, I'm going to go back to you because
Dawson's highest rated offensive player by PFF, any position. Kevin Dotson,
right? Yeah,
highest rated position by PFF, first team All-Pro right now.
Unbelievable, really. Great draft pick. But FC, what I was going to say was you were a little hard on Cameron Hayward last week. You asked the question, has he played? Has he been playing? He was outrageously good in this game.
He did let Johnny Manziel, Baker, and yes, I do that intentionally. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, slipped through his hands once or twice, which kind of upset me. But yes, he did lay the wicket. And the Steelers front seven, I believe I started off, said this podcast were amazing. And that's as high praise as you can get from me.
Perch, the Steelers. Speaking of one more thing about this game, the defensive front. They played a little of that Bud Carson over front against the Cleveland Browns run game, which I thought was an interesting development where you ended up with Cameron Hayward over across a tight end and the slant nose tackle. It just took me back to the 70s, and it had kind of the same effect on the Browns run game. They used that to perfection on 8 or 9 snaps, including stopping them on 4th down.
They dominated every time they did it, and that's one thing I was just about to cut you off and bring up was twice, 4th and a foot, 4th and a yard. They just dominated the line of scrimmage and shut them down in the backfield. I mean, just you couldn't ask for a better game out of the defensive line. And to it was a wrecking ball in that game. Hayward did really good. I mean, just those guys. Cleveland's got a pretty good offensive line. When our defensive line is healthy and they're on like that, man, they can really take over a game.
Indeed. Jeremy, last word on this wrap-up of the Cleveland Browns-Pittsburgh Steelers matchup. I'll give it to you before we move on to talk about this week.
Well, we kind of what Perch just said there, we've got a really special group up front that we really need to enjoy this year, because Bud Dupree very well might not be here next year, could easily be going to get a big-time contract, even if the market is a little down because of COVID this year. But we really need to enjoy these guys while we all have them as a group, because they are really just wrecking everyone they've gone up against. There might be a negative play here or there, but, the overall results of that defensive line and front seven, they have just been killing it game in and game out this year.
Yeah, I do think it's definitely important to appreciate the fact that it's a special group that we get to follow this year. The next couple of weeks are going to be a little bit more of a test even than last week. And to that end, let's talk about this week's matchup with your undefeated Tennessee Titans playing your undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. I think if I heard the stat correctly, it's only the 8th time in NFL history that 2 undefeated teams have played this late in the season. Perch, I'll throw an interesting one at you. The winner of any of these mid to late season undefeated matchups, the winner has always made it to the Super Bowl. So something to keep in mind for this week's game. Talk a little bit about this matchup with Tennessee, the general tenor of the way the Steelers are going to approach this game.
Well, first, I think we got to talk about how Ryan Tannehill owns the Steelers. Undefeated 2-0 against the Steelers defense with the shitty Miami Dolphins. If you guys remember those games, the Steelers played like shit both times. But Tannehill, since he's gotten out of Miami, and he's surrounded by a lot of offensive talent now, he's playing really well. And I'm sure you guys have seen the stats. If you look at his last 16 games that he started versus Patrick Mahomes, he's basically kind of in a statistical dead heat, just to kind of show the level that he's played at. But, the Steelers defense has come out so far this season and shown they can basically shut down and dominate anybody else's run game. This is the biggest test they'll face. Derrick Henry is just a freaking load. I think our front seven will do well against him. If he turns a corner, he can make your defensive backs, your corners and safeties look really bad. One stiff arm and he's gone for 20 yards. So that's got to be the first thing. If you can really stop that run and then get Tannehill behind the sticks, I think that's the biggest key to the game. The Titans are scoring 30-some points a game. They're putting up a lot. I don't think, if you look at all the, championship contenders, I think the Steelers are one of the very few that have both a very strong offense and defense. The Titans' offense has been really good. They've got some players on defense, but to me, it just comes down to, 1, can you slow or stop that run? And then 2, can you shut down Tannehill in that passing game on 3rd and long? I make the joke about Jonnu Smith getting, burning you up. If you remember going back to his draft profile, you would remember why. But, the Steelers have struggled a bit with tight ends from time to time. A.J. Brown's a good receiver. They got Corey Davis. It's, it's a well-rounded offense, but to me, it's all going to come down to that run. If we can stop that run and the play action that comes off of it and kind of keep the tight ends down. Tennessee's been in some close games this year with some bad teams, not too unlike the Steelers. But it's really, to me, I'm more concerned about what stopping their offense than I am scoring on their defense, because I don't have a lot of respect for that defense.
So FC, to the end of what Perch just said, Ryan Tannehill, number 2 in the NFL for most play action snaps. So in other words, the most times using play action in the passing game, one of the big reasons for his success. I guess my question will be, with the loss of Taylor Lewan to this offensive line, talk a little bit about their offensive line against our defensive front. Will Tannehill have the run game success that he needs to really make the play action work, and will his offensive line be able to protect long enough using play action for it to work?
No and no.
So wait, what you're saying is no?
No. I've always been a fan of Tannehill. I'm going to let that be known. I thought whenever they gave the job to Jerron Johnson, remember Steelers backup Jerron Johnson actually took Steve Tannehill's job as quarterback, and they moved Tannehill out the wide receiver for his junior year. A lot of people forget that at Texas A&M. I thought it was laughable. Tannehill is got a lot of damn fouls in a way. He's a lot more athletic. You put 2 hits on Tannehill in the game, legitimate hits. And if the run game ain't going, he gets the yips. That was his problem in Miami. We really couldn't pressure him in Miami. I remember the one game extremely well. I don't think that Dennis Kelly at right tackle and Ty Sabrio, who's going to start at left tackle, are the answer to stop Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. I don't think that Nathan Davis and Ben Jones and Roger Saffold, their interior offensive line, can block Hayward and Tuitt and Alu. I think that the Steelers are going to reestablish the line of scrimmage going in a negative manner for the Titans, meaning they're going to be getting pushed back. Derrick Henry is a fantastic back. He is a build up to speed and power back, where his first step is not explosive, but his third step's incredible. If the Steelers can stop Derrick Henry or make him go sideways at any point, I believe they will not only limit him, I think they can eliminate the Tennessee Titans run game. I think the Titans get to play the Jacksonville Jaguars twice, the Houston Texans twice, the Indianapolis Colts, despite that fraudulent pass defense they're putting on the field this year of smoke and mirrors. Those are not, I understand they had success and they went on a late run last year. I'm not sure the Tennessee Titans could have beat the Pittsburgh Steelers if they faced each other in the playoffs last year with Duck Hodges as our quarterback. And I truly believe that. Matchups make games. What the Tennessee Titans like to do, you don't do to the Pittsburgh Steelers generally, and you definitely don't do it to this year's team. You're not going to come out and punch the Pittsburgh Steelers in the mouth this year. We punch you in the mouth.
Yeah, it feels like they're, in a way, their mentality is kind of on offense is similar to what the classic Steelers mentality is. But when you're going against this kind of a defense, it makes it sort of difficult. I just talk for a second about their skill players, Jeremy. My take is they got Corey Davis back this week, which will definitely help. But I'm not really enamored of their skill players in the passing game. Obviously, Derrick Henry, if you get him the ball on a dump off and he's got a little bit of space to build up to speed, he can do some damage just because he's a great runner with the football. But the guys in the middle of the field, Jonnu Smith is plagued with some injury issues this year. Adam Humphries is kind of a guy that doesn't really scare you too much. And Ferkser,
the all-time most productive receiver ever at Clemson.
Say that again?
The all-time most productive receiver ever at Clemson.
Adam Humphries.
Adam Humphries, by the way.
Great. Well, so he wows you. He wows you then perhaps, but I'm just saying I feel like if you're worried about the Steelers plugging in a new guy in the middle, this doesn't really seem like the matchup where there's a lot of guys in the middle to give you problems, unless Jonnu Smith is really 100%.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They don't really have explosive guys. They've got a lot of good, solid guys. The one guy who we haven't mentioned, Khalif Raymond, He is their one little speedster. He is a guy that can get down the field if you let him. So I would definitely think, that's the defense. When he comes into the game, that's an option, make sure we account for his speed going deep. They've tried going to him deep a few times this year. Sometimes it's hit, sometimes it's not. So Khalif Raymond is the only guy that has that really true breakaway speed. A.J. Brown's a special receiver. What makes him special is him getting in and out of his cuts. That's where he gets most of his separation. He's not a blazer. Corey Davis is a nice, solid possession guy now that he's got some more talent around him. Adam Humphries is a guy. FC said most productive player in Clemson history. Did not know that. But he is a guy that has been reliable for them at times moving the chains. So that is a guy on third down that they do go to from here and there. Really going even to the running game, Derrick Henry, we all know Derrick Henry. Really the guy that surprised me is Jeremy Mcnichols. He's come in there and been the number two. Yeah, he's made his case to stick around there for a good time. He is a solid runner at Boise State. Had some injury issues at Boise State, if I'm correct. That's why he's kind of bounced around, but he's found a nice niche here in Tennessee. Darrenson Evans, I know I was high on him. I know a few other guys at Steeler Fury were high on him coming out of the draft. He has not really lived up to the billing so far yet, which has allowed Mcnichols to kind of overtake him. Evans is that speed guy we all like, but he really just hasn't gotten the opportunity yet.
Hamstring problems.
Hamstring, yeah. Jonnu Smith is the one guy. I'll be honest, I was totally wrong on him. I hated him coming out of the draft. Did not think he would ever amount to anything. And then, of course, in year 4, he surprises me and actually makes something out of himself. But he can be a big mismatch when he's healthy. He's dealing with this ankle injury. I'm just not sure how explosive he's going to be. So we'll see how much of a mismatch he is this week. He could be the one guy that kind of surprises Robert Spillane, if Spillane gets matched up on him or not. But like you made a good point, Devin Bush really hasn't been covering tight ends this year. Spillane probably won't be covering tight ends a whole lot this game in a similar role. So that's kind of the Titans' offensive weapons in a nutshell. Like we've already mentioned Ferkser, he can fill in occasionally and be that tight end, caught like 10 balls this past weekend. So definitely a guy you got to account for, but not game plan for him.
Just 2 more quick questions on this side of the ball. Perch, you're the Titans. Your left tackle situation is terrible. Tyson Brillo not only is not a good matchup for Bud Dupree, I'm not sure he's a good matchup for anybody in the NFL as an edge rusher. They were even talking about putting in their rookie. Is it Isaiah Wilson there or no? Which guy?
Isaiah Wilson.
Yeah. He's been sick for the last 2 days, so he hasn't even practiced all week.
Yeah, and they were already, didn't really want to put him in there. They were talking about
Wilson the right tackle and Dennis Kelly the left tackle.
Right, but regardless, okay. So Perch, you have a problem on the edges right now in this game, and you might even have a problem in the interior as far as the Steelers getting penetration that's going to take away that, not let Derrick Henry get to that third step. What do you come out doing as an offense? You come out with play action passing and try to get the Steelers out of the box a little bit. What do you think is the Titans' plan, and can it work?
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them to spread the Steelers out. I mean, you got a guy who's a head coach that kind of came from that New England Patriots, Bill Belichick tree that for years would just get the Steelers and spread them out and quick, short passing game and just move the chains up and down the field. I think he's got to look at his roster and say, hey, we got 2 pretty good tight ends. We got 3 or 4 pretty good receivers. Pittsburgh's going to be geared up to stop the run, and they're probably the best in the league at stopping the run. Let them think that. Let's just come out and let our quarterback win the game. To me, that's what I think that they may do, and I don't think that they're going to completely go away from Henry, but I could see them coming out early in the game and just spreading the field with a hurry-up offense and 4 or 5 targets and maybe even spreading Henry out wide and see if they can, get off that way and build a lead and then maybe kind of come back to the run.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, the thing that would scare me about that is you spread out the Steelers, you make them play man basically against you. That frees up Ryan Tannehill to maybe make some hay running the football, which is a danger with him. He's a very good runner. Sorry, I was telling that to you, Jeremy, but you're in Indianapolis. You're not drinking the milk like after the Indy 500. That's what I would be doing.
Nah, that's water. No, sorry, I didn't realize you threw that to me. Tannehill played wide receiver in college for a little bit. I mean, he can get out and make you pay if you don't, stay assignment sound. That guy, one thing they love to do is they love to run these running plays to the side, where they've got naked boot end, and all of a sudden Ryan Tannehill's taking off the other way and no one's within 10 feet of him. I mean, that's something they love to do on stretch run plays to the outside with him. And then even in the shotgun, I mean, he's been known to make stuff happen. He's just elusive. That's something you have to game plan for.
Just FC, I'll give you the last word on the Steelers defense versus Titans offense. You think the Titans can make this work?
Oh, they can make it work. Perch makes a very fair point about Mike Vrabel coming from the New England system and spraying the Steelers out, which is a definite possibility. But if Tennessee stays true to who they are, I feel this is going to be similar to the Buster Douglas-Mike Tyson fight, where Mike Tyson was the most incredible boxer ever whenever he got to come forward. But as soon as he couldn't come forward and he was forced backwards, meaning the line of scrimmage, he was shown to be vulnerable and susceptible. And that's the same way I feel about Tannehill and Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry doesn't get the build-up speed, if Tannehill has to play in a compressed pocket that's not played to either player's strength.
Yeah, I'll leave it there. That's a great way to put it. Actually, I have one last thing, and I'm going to go back to you, FC, for the follow-up, and that is, do you think this is a little bit of a wild hair with Mike Hilton not playing and Cam Sutton having a really defined role as the next defensive back end and dime? Is it possible that we might see Sean Davis playing in the slot, a role that he's kind of done before, especially doing Mike Hilton kind of stuff? Because 2/3 of what Mike Hilton does in the slot is blitz and drop deep as a sort of a safety look.
It's definitely a possibility and something I considered. I really think that they like Justin Lane. I really do. So I think that Justin Lane might be the player that actually may step into their role, and they could keep Cam Sutton in his defined dime role. But I've always, and he's fucked me every time, I've been a Cam Sutton fan. So I would maybe hope that he would see the more of the snaps. Sean Davis getting cut by the Redskins, that really scared me. So
I'm well aware of Sean Davis's flaws. I was just saying that one thing I think Sean Davis can do is make tackles in the slot in the run game and maybe give you a blitz, which is a lot of what the Mike Hilton contribution was. That's the reason I say that.
Sure, 10 to 12 plays is probably is all it's going to take. Is that he'll play. I mean, if the Titans really are forced to spread things out and forced to go to 3 or 4 wide receivers, it's not something they game plan to do, but the game is turning out to where they have their identities become 3 or 4 receivers. The Steelers are in really good shape.
Yeah, I'll add one thing in there, just on Cam Sutton real quick. I'm almost hoping that this is the path forward for him to take more snaps. I mean, we all love what Mike Hilton does near the line of scrimmage. He's nowhere near as good a player in coverage as Sutton is. I think Sutton's really underrated. I think that he could be a potential starting corner for us or for somebody else down the road. I hope we sign him after the year, but to me, he's I like to see him on the field.
I will go down with that ship with you, sir.
No, I can't argue with that either. I'm all for Sutton getting more snaps. It's just that he's been really good in the role he's been filling, and I hate to make a change at 2 positions when you could make a change at 1. It's that theory, like with the offensive line, defensive secondary really works together, and they just kind of got over the communication issues and this kind of stuff. So that's the only reason I put it out there. Nothing against Cam Sutton, who I believe in, and actually Justin Lane, when he's had a chance in the preseason to get looks, looked pretty good. So could be. I wouldn't even put it past them to throw James Pierre out there for all I know. Let's talk a little bit about the other side of the ball. So Jeremy, I'll start with you. Steelers offense, I think, we've already sort of alluded to it tonight that we're not as worried about the Steelers offense against Tennessee's defense. they've got Tennessee has they got 2 or 3 players that I think we'd all agree are really good players, but I'm not sure their defense as a whole can stick with the Steelers. But let's talk for a second about, in my opinion, the biggest problem for the Steelers, and his name is not Justin Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons. He plays, the nose tackle or in tackle for the Titans. Jeffrey Simmons looked like he is a Steeler. Like he looks like somebody that would play in the Steelers defensive line this year. How are the Steelers going to deal with that issue?
Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons is a beast. I remember, watching tape of him in Mississippi State, and me and my buddies went down to that Nashville draft, and he's a Titans fan. I plan on watching the game with him this Sunday. And when they first selected Simmons, he had this really puzzled look on his face, and I said, you won't be doing that in a year. This is a legit guy who could be an all-pro type defensive tackle. He's clearly their big disruptor since they decided to let Jarrell Casey go to Denver. He is a nuisance in the run game. He can get after it in the pass game. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of double teaming on him. I think you're going to see Pouncey start off on him with a guard helping and chipping him out. Matt Filer's a big guy. That's a guy who I could see helping out on the double team. I believe DeCastro is playing this week. If not, FC has said, Dotson has played incredible so far for a 4th-round rookie. Controlling that middle is going to be a big part of it, though, just to get to all facets of our running game. We can't afford to have him disrupting plays in the backfield. That's where we've kind of had our troubles at times, where a guy knifes in there real quick and kind of destroys the play before it even gets going.
Sure. Always, it's a problem for anybody, really, right, unless you're Barry Sanders. FC, I mean, my sense is that the Steelers, are an offense that week to week can look, their focus can be completely different. I almost felt like in the games they've played so far, in the 5 games, that they have specifically centered around a different player each week in a way, like not, necessarily in the run game, but in terms of the passing targets and the sort of the feel for what they were doing on offense. Last week felt like, it was kind of the James Washington focus week, for what it's worth. I'm wondering if this is a game because of Simmons in the middle. And I know Clowney's a pretty good run defender, but this is not a game where you want to work the edges, maybe with the short passing game. It just feels like Tennessee to the edge. Byard is a wonderful safety. I think he's, would be an excellent strong safety. He's a very good free, but he doesn't really have that speed to get involved in the games, the plays out on the edge. I think the Steelers might try to work the edge a little bit and pass the ball a little bit more this week than they did last week.
Can my quarterback find passing angles and not get the ball knocked down by Vic Beasley and Jadeveon Clowney? That's the first thing. Is my quarterback going to move his feet? Is he going to find a passing angle? Is he going to find a throwing lane? So if he shows me that he can, then yeah. I mean, the Titans play very good as a group, but like Daquan Jones from Penn State is a phenomenal 3-4-5, nose tackle, 5 gap, 5 technique player. You can say, Jeffrey Simmons, Fletcher Cox, the Chris Jones, and then Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, the Mississippi State lineage of defensive tackle over the last 10 years is incredible, and he's incredible. Vic Beasley, he didn't work out for him after his first year in Atlanta. He has explosive elements to his game. I think that the Steelers' plan is to jam the ball between the tackles with Connor to test those 2 undersized inside linebackers. I personally think that I'd take Byard over any safety in the NFL. I believe he's the only current safety in the NFL that's made the Pro Bowl every year he's played.
Not the Pro Bowl, but All Pro, because he actually made All Pro first team one year and didn't go to the Pro Bowl.
You are correct. Dory Jackson's a nice corner, but they're small. That's the one thing. They're short. I don't see them. If Juju Smith-Schuster's knee and If he finds his game, if he gets back to what he was when AB was here, what he was 2 years ago, man, I mean, because we haven't talked about the Mapletron, but boy, was that a great draft last week. And, you know, he's showing legitimate superstar first wide receiver qualities. I just don't think that if we can protect Ben, that Tennessee has any chance of stopping this offense, even on their own.
I mean, Perch, you know, FC is worried about that's, you know, the quarterback's ability to move his feet. I feel like after the first quarter last week, he wasn't having any problems. I think a lot of this is, you know, when the game plan is basically 2004 Steelers, you know, pounding the rock and letting Ben convert some third downs, whatever. That's kind of what last week in particular was like. And they scored 38 points doing it. So, like, you know, more power to them. But I feel like when, you know, Ben is like any quarterback. He needs a little rhythm. He needs to get a little rhythm going for it all to come together. And I just had this feeling that maybe this week is a week where they'll attack a little bit more. Maybe you agree with FC and disagree with me.
Well, no, I mean, anytime Ben's had a bad game or a bad stretch of a game, it's always early. Like, yeah, he started clunky a number of times. And then by, you know, late in the first half, he gets going. Whenever shit's on the line late in the game, he's always money and he's always on. So, you know, feeling out process, you know, whatever the reason is, if he ever struggles, it's typically early. If he doesn't struggle early in the game, he's pretty much money the entire game. You never see him start out strong and then really fall off a cliff. But I just don't have a lot of respect for the Titans defense. They have one player, Simmons, who has multiple sacks this year. They have 7 sacks total as a team. The Steelers have 6 guys with multiple sacks and 25 as a team. They got 36-year-old Jonathan Joseph starting at one of the corners. I thought he retired 2 or 3 years ago. Apparently, he's still playing for those guys. I mean, they gave up 30 points to the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. You know, they've been giving up a lot of points to teams who really aren't that good. The Texans scored 36 on them last week on their own field. The Vikings, with Kirk Cousins, haven't been able to do shit this year. They put up 30 on them. It's just that defense is leaking a lot of points. And I don't think they can really stop the run. I think the Steelers, if they get the run going, they'll be able to mix the pass in, and we should be able to get 30 points. If we don't score 30 in this game, there's something wrong. And, you know, if our defense gives up 30, there's something wrong too. So I just don't, you know, I think it'll be a tough game. I'm more worried about the Titans' offense than our defense.
I mean, Purchase a follow-up. The only thing I would say about that is just, you know, Jeffrey Simmons is a guy that could blow up your run game, that you're an interior run game, which is what makes me worried about really trying to focus on running that.
We've played some good defensive tackles, and you know what? None of them have done shit. We've got a really good interior offensive line. You know, I think he's a talented young guy. He's a good player, but let's not make him out to be, you know, something better than J.J. Watt and Fletcher Cox and some of the other players we've played.
Yep, fair enough. Just a last thing for you, Jeremy. You know, kind of looking at the film a little bit, it feels like Juju is still getting most of the attention, still getting a lot of attention for a guy that didn't really, you know, get a lot of focus last week. You know, Ben's favorite receiver is the receiver that's open. And I just wonder if, you know, soon teams are going to switch that attention to Chase Claypool, and that might open things up a little bit for Juju. And we haven't even talked about Deontay Johnson, who comes back this week, apparently the most healthy he's been in weeks. What's your take on this sort of ever-evolving, you know, receiver targeting this week?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Deontay Johnson because I was about to. I mean, just having him back is a big boost to this offense. You know, I think, you know, the first game he was out, you know, that was the game Chase Claypool really went off with the 4 touchdowns, you know, had another good week this week. But now we're getting Deontay Johnson back. I mean, and this is a guy in week 2 that went for over 100 yards, multiple catches. I don't see how the Titans can defend all the Steelers' options in the passing game. And we haven't even really talked about Eric Ebron and Vance Mcdonald. I think those could be 2 guys that we definitely utilize. I could definitely see Vance Mcdonald making one of these, you know, smaller inside linebackers look like absolute fools trying to tackle him. I mean, we've all seen in the past he's been, you know, just a force to bring down sometimes just after the catch with him. But just in general, the Titans just don't have the type of of players that can keep up with 5 legitimate options for the Steelers on offense, if you ask me. It's like you said, if teams start to shift more attention to Claypool, now Juju starts killing you. Focus too much on Juju, Claypool kills you. Now Deontay Johnson comes back. You've got, even James Washington, he's not great, but he's good. That gives you another option. There's just so many options. I don't know if the Titans really have enough to have a full deck of cards to deal with all that.
Yeah, sort of. I feel like if they can incorporate Deontay Johnson back into the game without diminishing what Chase Claypool is doing, and that probably means fewer snaps for James Washington. But I feel like that's they're still finding that balance. It's like we're 5 weeks in, 5 wins in, and they still haven't really figured out the balance of their offense. How to get Ebron and Vance Mcdonald and everybody into the game, right? So, a quick note about I meant to say, I'm sorry, before we move to the illustrious pick segment. Darren Fells, who's the blocking tight end for Houston, is 30 whatever years old. Somebody that signed basically for the league minimum and is a tremendously productive player, really good blocker. But he went off for 685 and a touchdown, 6 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown last week. So bodes well for tight ends. At any rate, okay, well, we're going to talk about our specific predictions for this week's matchup a little bit later. But first, it's time for our illustrious pick segment, brought to us by
Sports and Shit, your home for dog koozies, cups, napkins, shirts, swag of all sorts. Also, we're going to have a special call out because it's very rare. But I had to listen to Joe Buck 3 days in a row. Joe Buck, thanks for sponsoring the podcast. I hope you die in a plane crash. Boy, I just have nightmares of Joe Buck in my head. And Terry McCauley before saying, well, I don't know what I would call there. Great analysis, Terry.
Great analysis, Terry. That should be the tagline for our show from now on. We could have him on the show and ask him questions. He'd be like, I don't really know. Let's talk about a couple of matchups. For our picks this week, I got a couple games for you. Perch, I'll start with you. Your Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks are a road favorite, 3-point favorite over Arizona. What's your take on this game? Chance for an upset?
Yes. Divisional rival. Nobody's going 16-0. Still not a big fan of the Seahawks defense. I think the Cardinals at home get it done. At least cover that 3.5 point spread. I'm going to take them to win outright. So let's go 29-26 Cardinals.
Jeremy, how about you?
Definitely think it'll be a shootout. Kyler Murray looked really impressive last week, even though albeit was against Dallas. That's not saying a whole lot. I think the Seahawks are going to win this, though. I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. He's the best quarterback in the NFL this year. That's what I'm putting my money on.
And Dom, how about you?
I'll take the Seattle Seahawks win the game 35-31.
So you also like the over?
I do.
Little gambling juice for you, FC. I like the Arizona Cardinals in this game. I many things to like about Seattle. I think they have maybe the best. If the Steelers don't, Seattle has the best wide receiver crew in the league, I think. And I love their running back. Their quarterback is excellent. So the offensive side of the football, they're pretty good. And they've been kind of coming around on D. But Arizona's sort of hot right now, and I think it's a big game for them. Yes, it's a little bit like the Cleveland Browns playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it's also, Arizona playing at home against Seattle, and Seattle has been pretty. They've managed to escape unscathed so far this year, but I get a feeling that Arizona's a good test for them. Just a good matchup. Matchups make the matchup, or styles make the matchup, something like that. Jeremy, I'll go with you with the next game. That's the Chicago Bears at the Los Angeles Rams. The Bears are somehow 5-1, and they are a 6-point underdog in Los Angeles. A bit of a weird game to try to figure.
That's tough. I'm going to go ahead and say the Bears find a way to cover that, though. They don't look pretty, but they find a way to get it done week in and week out. I think the Bears defense could present some trouble for Goff and crew. So we'll see. I can see the Bears pulling that out, though.
Perch, how about you?
I'm going Rams. I just think if you got a team as explosive as the Rams that could put some points up and get a lead on the Bears, the Bears they're built to play from ahead, not from behind. So I'm going to take the Rams 27-20.
FC, how about you?
I just can't trust Jared Goff at all. I'll take the Bears 23-21.
Yeah, my take, having got to see a lot of Rams football the last few years, I've been stuck watching them on occasion. I feel like Goff is a guy that when he's facing a sort of a ordinary defense, bad defense, can look really outstanding. He's like a corollary to the Ryan Fitzpatrick rule, which is for a few weeks a year he's going to be the best looking quarterback in the league, and then other times he's going to be one of the worst looking. I think facing a really good defense. If they don't get out to that lead early that Perch alluded to, that can be some trouble for them. And I personally witnessed him and his team get demolished against Tampa Bay's defense last year. I think the Bears defense might be better than they were last year. So I will take the Bears in the 6 points, making my friend Mark Shepard happy. One last thing that's not really picking a game, but I'll start with you, Perch. What do you think of this Ryan Fitzpatrick getting ditched as the starting quarterback for Miami in favor of Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, you put shoes on your feet. You put Ryan Fitzpatrick early in the season, and you put him on the bench late in the season, right? I mean, you use a guy for what he is, right? That was his whole goal. He knew he was getting benched at some point anyway. The Dolphins are playing way better than they thought. You kind of figured they're going to let Tua, rest and get healthy and everything from the injuries he had last year, and establish their offense and their offensive line and make sure things look good. And the Dolphins, they're a pretty well coached team, and they're playing well. And Tua is the future, and you had to do it. I talk about Fitzpatrick almost every week in this podcast. I enjoy the guy and the way he plays, and that's the kind of guy I would have loved to have for a backup for the Steelers the last 7-8 years. But he is what he is, and Tua is the future of that franchise. So if the team's playing well and they have a chance to get him in and he's healthy, you got to make that switch at some point. So also I'll throw in, your New York Giants are just about to be a playoff team. They're about to take over the lead in the NFC East. So I don't know if you guys are watching the game or not.
Not yet. I will be at some point. FC, your take on this, because my sense with this thing is, yes, we understand that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a placeholder, but they're 3-2. They're sort of in the playoff hunt. I feel like and Fitzpatrick has played really well. Part of the reason that they're 3-2 is that he's played pretty well. So it strikes me as like a move that could totally backfire if it ends up costing your team contention, where you don't even, whether they make the playoffs or not, if it at least feels like they're relevant in December, that would be a big step forward for this team. I just wonder if Tua, maybe I'm just not a big enough Tua fan, not really a big believer in him translating to the NFL. Wondering how you see this.
I'm probably the wrong person to be asking, because I am the most anti-Tua Tagovailoa person that you will probably speak to. I wouldn't have drafted him before the 4th round. I think he's garbage. I think he is a very similar left-handed version of Baker Mayfield, but I don't think he's quite as athletic. I think he has his biggest set of guts.
I mean, Jeremy, the other thing I'm kind of with Dom, but I'm closer to that camp, which is maybe why I'm questioning this move. But the other thing I would say is in his pre-draft workouts, I don't know what he looks like, especially now. I've seen him play one play this year. But he did not look mechanically back to 100%. Still looked like he had sort of like a hitch in his giddy up throwing the football during his pre-draft workouts. And the one play that I saw him play, it looked like it was a hard work for him to get a 1-yard completion. So I'm wondering if you think physically that he's even ready to be the starter. Apparently they do.
Yeah, they obviously do, because they're willing to roll the dice. I just think it comes at a really curious time, because Fitzpatrick is playing well, you can always go to Tua when he isn't playing well, but you've had success early in the year with Fitzpatrick. I just don't see that. I don't really think there was a need to go to Tua at this time. That's the thing that is puzzling me the most, is that you've established your identity, all that. You're playing really good football. Why make a change now? It's like Tua hasn't gotten for starters reps and stuff. I could easily see this backfiring, to be honest. I thought it was just a real low-class move, to be honest, because he's been playing really good. This was his team, and then it's just randomly called in on a Monday. It was like, well, we're going with Tua now. Thanks for everything.
I mean, FC,
I'll give you rumors that they might even try to trade him, and it's just I just don't understand what went wrong.
It's very strange. I mean, FC, I'll give you the last word. I mean, I just think it's like
I don't even think it even warrants time on this podcast, to be honest with you. I think it's horrible. I think it's one of the most low-class things I've ever heard, and I really hope that Brian Flores gets fired. I hope the Dolphins. I'm cheering against the Dolphins. I cheer for the New England Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins now. This is one of the biggest scumbag moves I heard about in professional sports in a real long time.
Scummier than Mike? Is it Mike Vrabel? I'm sorry, I forget that's the Tennessee coach, right? Mike Vrabel.
Yep.
Mike Vrabel at least was practicing his players. You know what I mean? How?
I meant actually the thing.
How can you look at that in the locker room? How do you look? Either one of those wide receivers, Preston Williams or the kid from Louisville, in the eye, Devontae Parker in the eye, and say, hey, you're fucking with their money. These guys are playing for future contracts. These are guys that are playing to get paid. And, you bringing in, Tua after, Ryan Fitzpatrick's arguably been a top 5 quarterback in the AFC. On so many levels, I have so many problems with it.
FC's fired up tonight. Perch, what I was getting at with Mike Vrabel is that he used the rules to get essentially an extra timeout that allowed his team to come back in regulation. Did you see about this?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's smart, right?
Exactly.
It helps the team win. It's within the rules. Hey, you're not cheating, you're not trying. You could bend the rules a little bit.
I mean, basically
using spy cameras and deflate footballs, but
basically that game boiled down to it's really smart, even if borderline illegal, that Vrabel did, and Romeo Crennel going for 2 up by 7. That probably was the difference in the game. It was just like a good coaching decision, bad coaching decision, different ballgame. Anyway, okay, that's enough for our illustrious pig segment. It's now time for our 5-star matchup, brought to us by Sports and Shit. I never had a sponsor before. It's our 5-star matchup because the Steelers are in it, and this week it's a matchup that really qualifies as a 5-star matchup. Your undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers against your undefeated Tennessee Titans. And lest we forget, the Tennessee Titans, who cost the Steelers their bye week and threw things into a tizzy by not taking care of their own business in-house. Not that I'm complaining, but I'll start with you, Jeremy. Tell me what you think is going to happen in this game. Steelers, by the way, a 2-point underdog in this game somehow.
Oh, I don't buy that for a heartbeat. I think it's going to be a close game for the first half, but Pittsburgh separates in the second half. That seems where Pittsburgh's really been able to do a lot of their damage. They go in and make adjustments, and if the second half has kind of been there, have to really put the clamps down. I think they're going to win 34-20.
There you go. Perch, how about you?
Yeah, pretty simply put, the Steelers have way more ways to win. Where our pass rush is really good, and they've got a beat-up offensive line. They've got some deficiencies on their run defense. They've got some old guys and some, lesser talented guys in their secondary. Their defense isn't good. The Steelers are good on both sides of the ball. We can run, we can pass, we can stop the run, we can stop the pass, we can rush the passer. The only thing that really scares me about the Titans is watching them play throughout the season. Man, they put up a lot of points late in the games when it matters, and the Steelers seem to leak at that time. So I could see the Steelers jumping out to like a 30-20 lead, and then the Titans, scoring a couple late to steal a win. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm going to go Steelers 30, Titans 27, and a comfortable Steelers victory.
Well, if 2 points last week was a blowout, 3 points is a comfortable win. I'm just trying to understand.
Just watch the game.
FC, tell me about it.
I'll take the Pittsburgh Steelers 33-23. I think that Tennessee will come back a little bit at the end, maybe add 10 points in the fourth quarter, 10 meaningless points in the fourth quarter. I expect the Steelers will control both sides of the line of scrimmage. And, basically no one will stand out, but no one the GOAT either. There'll be I expect Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Connor, Ebron, Juju, all, to have touches and make plays in the game. It's not going to be one guy. It's going to be, the team.
A lot of hands into the pot, as the Mcdonald would say. It's funny. Tennessee is one of those teams that I think they're better in the results than they actually can appear to be at times. I'm tempted to say the Steelers are going to want to go in there and provide a beatdown on Tennessee, but I think they operate a little bit. Even though they wanted to do that to Cleveland last week and it kind of worked out that way, I think they're a little bit more parse out their energy a little bit more, and they do what it takes to win, but not necessarily. They don't need to embarrass Tennessee. They just need to walk out of there with a victory. To that end, though, I do think the Steelers, are maybe going to hit that 30 mark again, and I think Tennessee is not. You might not be that different from last week's game where Tennessee got an early lead with the Steelers' slow start, and then the Steelers come back in the game and get up by a score. But there's a difference between the Steelers' defense and the Houston defense, and that would be, the chances of Tennessee moving it all the way down the field and getting a touchdown to tie the game. A little bit less likely than it was last week against Houston. I'll take your Steelers 31-23 over the Tennessee Titans. I will not be surprised if the score ends up being wider than that in the Steelers' favor, especially after watching them last week. But, try not to get too impressed by last week's game. It's a week-to-week league, someone told me. And to that end, Perch, I'll go with you. Last word.
Let's make these bastards pay for missing our bye week. Let's run up the score and win by 4.
By 4.
Jeremy, how about you?
Well, I think the 34-20 is going to be the score. I definitely think this one surprised me a lot to see 8 or 9 guys touch the ball and really make the Titans defend all blades of grass on the field this week.
Yeah. FC, I'll give you a last word as well. I agree with that, Jeremy.
I walked out this morning and I seen the largest Ohio State Buckeye flag that I've ever seen in my life. The son of a bitch has got to be 50 feet. And my neighbor's flying it, and I was like, nice. So, it's nice to have all college football back. It's nice that we're moving on from this virus, which is very contagious and very dangerous to tell early. So it's good to have some normalcy with the old football.
Indeed, normalcy is good, unless you don't like the normal. Abnormalcy, we could even use some of that. It'd be all right. All I will say for my last word is, let's be happy with whatever kind of win we get this week because, the Ravens are coming next week. You could easily look ahead from the Tennessee game and get ahead of yourself. Not only as a fan, but as a player, as an organization. It's easy enough to do that. They're human beings. So let's get out of there with a win and let's enjoy a Steelers victory. Savor a Steelers victory going 6-0 for only the second time in team history. Gentlemen, Jeremy, Smith is smoking, Perch, that's as in steel, and FC as in Dom. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Thanks to everybody at SteelerFury.com and everybody who follows me on the interwebs and Twitterverse. And to that end, after a Steelers victory, we're going to talk again next week. I say, go get them, Steelers.
Go Steelers.
Here we go.
SteelerFairy.com.